So here we are today at Slanguage at LAXART, and today we have Tofer Chin, Los Angeles-based artist, here with us. He's going to be sharing with us in a conversational style what his practice is like and how he makes beats. No, he doesn't. where he said at the Grammys the other day. No, but Tofer and I met through Otis College of Art and Design. I think he was a few years below me there, and
It's been a minute now.
Yeah, and we had a teacher in common named Ruben Ortiz Torres, who I remember Tofer did one of his first murals out in Echo Park on Ruben's garage door or something like that back in the days.
That's crazy. That's old. That's old school.
And also when Brienne Arrington and John Souza and I ran 4F Gallery in Chinatown on Chungking Road. Now I think the Coagula Gallery is in that same space now. Tofer and his buddy Mr. Amir Fala did a 2-person show there. And both of you guys have been in my life in the last week. It's funny because I seen you here at the opening and we've been reconnecting. And then the other day I went to 18th Street to go hang out.
Oh yeah,
there, and he's in residence there painting and doing his wall stuff and doing all kinds of stuff there. And I was like, man, both of you guys came full circle in my life within the past couple weeks. And it's really great to see how you guys have both matured in different ways as artists. So introduce yourself, Tofer. Tell us about yourself, man.
My name is Tofer Chin. Like Mario said, I'm born and raised here in Los Angeles. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and art in some way, shape, or form has always been a huge part of my life. I grew up obsessed with cartoons, just always the first one up in the morning, before the sun came up, watching cartoons. Then I remember the cartoons were over at 8, 9 o'clock. Yeah. So it was, that was my first intro to, I feel art was just, on the TV and my comic books and stuff like that. And then my folks would take me to museums growing up, and then it all kind of spiraled out of control from there. And I went to college at Otis College of Art and Design. I graduated in 2002. Before that, I did a couple years at Santa Monica City College. Because right out of high school, I applied to all the UCs and stuff, and of course I didn't get into one of them. I actually got into one. I got into Irvine, and I was like, oh hell no, I'm not going to Irvine. And I wanted to go to UCLA. UCLA was my
dream school.
That was my dream school because being from LA, UCLA is just the school to go to. So then I was like, well, I'm not going to spend all this money on school. I don't even know exactly yet what, because my dreams were kind of crushed at that point. So I did Santa Monica for 2 years, and that was I took a painting class. I took my first painting class, official oil painting class there, and fell in love. I was I could do this for the rest of my life. So then I took, it's funny because I took airbrushing there, I took design classes, all these tools that I use today in my practice, I actually got in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So then I went to Otis for 3 years, and I graduated in 2002, like I said, and I've been making art full time pretty much since. When I got out of college, I worked in the entertainment industry doing set design, art department work. I had a clothing company for about 5 years too. So I was doing art and I was doing other things. And then I'd say maybe around 2008 is when I decided to just go full time. And it was a shitty time because that's when
the crisis.
That's when the economy was at its all-time low. And that's when I decided to, dead the clothing company and make paintings and do that. But a big part of it all is the struggle, and that's going to make you better at whatever. If you're making music, if you're doing design, if you're doing whatever you're doing, you have to go through that struggle in order to really appreciate the highs, because there's always going to be the lows and there's always going to be the highs. to go through that struggle and to deal with hard times and good times, I mean, that's life. So it will mold you to become a better person, a more creative person as well, and and now I'm trying to figure out where I'm at right now here.
So that's like the big picture stuff.
That's the big picture.
So can you reel us into like a timeline or
timeline? Let's see. So this is a show I did in 2000. What year was this? 9 in Culver City. So this was when my work was a lot more. It was like super finish fetish. These paintings were like really like they were perfect. They were sandblasted. They were just you saw no like hand in it. Okay. And what? So this show was a 5-part acid trip. I called it Double Dip. It was like it was very literal, like experimenting and stuff. And so it started with a sheet of acid. This was all individual tabbed perforated paper.
So that was a real sheet of acid?
This was a real sheet of acid. I wanted to dip it in acid.
So that was one acid sheet, but you didn't.
So this is an oversized sheet. So a normal sheet, 7.5 by 7.5. This was a little bit bigger. This was like 11 by 14. Okay. I wanted to dip it in like acid for the show. Yeah. And I got a cease and desist letter from their lawyers at the gallery. They're like, "Oh no, you can't fucking do this." And I'm like, "Serious?"
Yeah.
All right, whatever.
So how was that, like going like where it's kind of like where rubber hits the road, where like ideas and like your thought process hits the reality of like dealing with gallery spaces and red tape because that's like that like,
okay, so this show for example, I had an idea. I was asked to do the show, and it was a concept that I had, and I was like, okay, I want to execute it, right? I had 2 hurdles that I had to go through with this show. First one was that, with the acid paper. Second, and this was part of my whole just dialogue for the show, was they gave me shit for using a rainbow.
Really?
They were like, well, because it was on the invite, and they're like, oh, we don't know, like, like how people are going to respond to this, because it's like very like referencing gay. And I'm like, that's the whole fucking point. I'm like, this is a rainbow. And for me, a rainbow is something it's happiness. It reminds me of like hippie culture. It reminds me of
somewhere over the rainbow.
So that was that. It was a struggle getting even, and you would never even think that you'd have to deal with something like that. I mean, it's so non-threatening, but it kind of like proved my point and why I wanted to use this like rainbow palette for it. But the process of executing was, I was given the space and I had the idea and I just made the work and saw it through, and you're always going to have to go through hurdles and kind of fight for your vision. I feel like because there's always so much input from people,
right?
And
did it make you stop for doing all of your pieces, or make you like kind of, oh, I can't show this now because I have this hurdle?
No, I mean I was more like, screw you guys, I'm doing this. Gotcha. Yeah. Good. That's it. And it was really good. It was a really good show, and from there I moved on. So let me just show you guys. So
because we've been talking about that for a while in the studio, like these kind of cultural identifiers that I feel like at one point belonged to everybody, and then now they're just specific, like used for specific things. And you're like, man, like I want the rainbow back in my life. You know what I mean? Like
So it was a really something so simple, and like you're saying, like this visual identity that's so simple and it's so strong at the same time. And I think, creating anything, you want to get a reaction.
Good.
That's, I mean, I'm not trying to
Create conversation.
Yeah, I'm not trying to change the world by any means. But I do want you to react to what I'm doing. If you love it or you hate it, or if just a reaction, then I've done some. Then I've done my job. I feel like, you know, because it's about getting conversations started. I think.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not about answers. It's more like that's where questioning comes in. Because then, if you're asking questions, like that's one thing that when I was a younger artist, I used to think, oh man, I'm doing this work because I want to have an answer. Like I'm trying to like give somebody a point. You know, like, what's the point? But then as I matured, I started finding out it's not about me giving the answer. It's more about like me asking questions, so I could, for me first of all, and then for an audience, so that I could have like people to talk to things about. You know,
because then why would you be putting something out there if you had all the answers? Like, you know
what
I mean?
Exactly.
It's like I know everything. So
and why would you think you knew everything?
I don't have to do anything.
Exactly.
But real quick to kind of get to where I'm at right here, because this is 2009. My work from like college to this kind of like maybe like to the mid 2000s was it was more figurative, more like kind of cartoony, and then I did a lot of like street artwork, and where I would like do site specific installs in the street with actual objects that were flat objects that were like wheat pasted. But so I was more representational, and then I made a slow shift to abstract. And taking the figure and these taking the figure out of my work because it was so identifiable. And it was like your read, and talking about questioning and stuff, the read was very directed, I felt, for me, and I didn't want to have such a direct, like, because my work is, they're like minimalistic landscapes essentially, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but you know, I was doing these landscapes with figures, and there were kind of, that backgrounds were getting more abstracted, but this figure was still in it, and it was just like, like when I even showed at 4F, there was like limbs and arms and stuff. The moment I took all that out was the moment I felt like, okay, the world opened up to me, and I could just like do what I wanted to do, and then the read was that much more interesting for people, and they could kind of make their own story and make their own path through each piece. So I just wanted to touch on that. So I've done a lot of like public work in overseas, especially in Brazil, and these towers I did. They're still there. They're permanent in São Paulo.
Wow, that's cool. Those are huge.
These are, yeah.
How many stories high?
You're like, yeah, big. It's really big.
How long did this process take you?
So it was more getting approval. Yeah, because I worked with a curator on this, and there was a sponsor involved, a car sponsor. I think it was Smart Car, and then the government. And so in São Paulo, there's this whole like anti-graffiti / advertisement like law that was passed.
Yeah.
So I started going to Brazil frequently starting in 2007. But my wife, she's from Brazil, and she told me in the 90s it was just like billboards and lights and signage and all this, and then boom, in 2000s they passed this law, and I mean essentially it looked like Tokyo there. And they cut off no more signage, no more lights, no more billboards. So with doing like anything on the street, there's tons of graffiti, but like to do something that's like legal, you have to jump through tons of hoops, and there's a lot of bureaucracy you have to deal with. So it was like in order to get to this, I did probably like 14 sketches, and it had to get approved by the government, so then they could fund it and then make it all happen. So it was probably like, this was a good 5-month process. The execution was like That was the fast part.
Yeah.
It was actually just getting everything approved.
And how was that? Were you more flexible than like with your gallery show in relationship to changing things and moving things around?
Yeah, this was something. It was more. I'm trying to, because this was a minute ago. This was in 2009. I remember I knew what I wanted to do. I knew because Sao Paulo is a cold city. It's called the concrete jungle, and it's very gray. It's very sterile. There's a lot of concrete, and there's a lot of like just poverty, and then upper class, not too much middle class.
So there's not a lot of trees there?
There are a lot of trees, but there's not a lot of color.
Oh, gotcha.
So like, if you go to the park, there's greenery, and certain, the more, the nicer neighborhoods, there's green, but it's just green and gray.
Oh, gotcha.
There's no color.
Gotcha.
So what I wanted to do, and this was, you can see it's kind of a similar time when I was doing that last show with the Rainbow Palette. I was like, okay, I want to bring a burst of color to this city. And you can see it's on this like concrete, on these concrete like silo towers. So I had the idea. I just had to go through a bunch of different like drawings till it got to this.
And drawings in more sense than the word, right? You're like drawing on like making the drawings for the sketches and then drawing on the different municipalities and sponsors and
Yeah, it was this actually, now that I'm going back in time right now, remembering, I almost said no. Because it got to a point where I was like, sketch, no, sketch, no, sketch, no, but with very little feedback.
Okay.
And then I was like, like number 10, I was like, dude, I can't do this, but I was like, I have to do this because this is going to be permanent, and this location's like amazing. This is actually so there's it's pretty much equivalent to their Central Park.
Okay.
It's called Parque Ibirapuera.
Okay.
And there's like 14 different entrances to the park. It's massive. So this is at one of the actual entrances, exits.
Okay.
So like what you're looking at here is on this grassy knoll, and there's like a turnaround that goes around it, and then it's like right in front of the park.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I can't. I knew the location. I knew where it was going to be. So I was like, I had to just stick with it. And like, finally, they said yes, and I got to do that. So, and it was worth it because it's still there.
Did your designs get minimal when they kept saying no, or like did it?
I'm trying to remember, but yeah, they were in the beginning. They were a lot crazier, and then it kind of like got tighter and tighter and tighter.
Kept saying no, so
yeah.
Now,
I think I had ones where the whole thing was painted. I think it was, like I said, I don't remember like all the sketches, but yeah, they kept, and it turned out really good too, and I think that's the way it was supposed to be. So here's like a. So these years is still I'm doing like the more kind of optical work. I did this sculpture. It was a commission piece for this interior designer. Her name's Kelly Worsler. This was a fun, labor-intensive piece. This is again the work that's like really like still very finish fetish.
But why were you trying to go for like taking out the hand in that stuff, Joe?
I think I was so drawn to I'm trying to remember, like, say an artist like Murakami, and just how
Super
everything
flat.
is super flat, perfect. I think it goes back to animation and the animation cells, and just like even sign painting, and like just the idea of things being flat and perfect. And I think that's inherent within my work even now, is that I love things. I'm just me as a person. I'm very like organized and like things tight and clean. But at the same time, what I was going through when I was doing these works is my love for like gestural works and really painterly paintings. And while I'm doing this, always thinking about, okay, how can I get to that point? How can I bring that into my work? So let me just get through these. So I've also done like some like product-based stuff as well. So I work with.
To explore on different.
Yeah, I do like.
Not just painting.
I kind of, and I've told Mario this too. Is like, the whole point of doing this is to have fun.
Yeah.
It really is. And I've always been that type of person that's like, well, I want to do this, or I want to do this, I want to do this. It all comes back to the same, kind of the same thing, you know? And I feel like art is painting, it's sculpture, it's film, it's music, it's writing, it's everything. It really is. So this is a rug that I did. I was approached by these guys. They're from Argentina actually, and they're based out of here. And they have a rug company called Pure Rugs, and they loved my work, and they were like, "Oh, we want to make a rug with you." All the cowhides are from Brazil. It's all sewn in Brazil. Like each piece is hand stitched.
Wow, you can see the detail on the first thing. Can you go back to the?
Yeah.
You can kind of see the stitching.
Hand stitch.
Yeah. It's all custom ordered.
I heard rugs are like so like takes time to make.
These take about. Well, the hardest part about this is none of the white or the black are dyed. So this is all like
Matching everything.
Yeah. So sometimes we'll get rugs back that the whites might be a little bit yellow, and then you got to return them. But it takes about a month. It takes about a month, and it kind of also depends on the hide that's available. Because, like I said, they're not doing any dyeing of the hide.
So it's like changes your materiality in relationship to like what you're making and the control of materiality.
Oh yeah.
It's not in your hands.
Well, and that's one thing I learned. I really learned early on having a clothing company, is because we would make stuff in Canada, we make stuff in Hong Kong, and even in LA. If I wasn't standing over the person making it, more than likely something's gonna get messed up. So I really learned that part of it, I think, with doing the clothes and all that, and then brought that back into my practice with art, knowing that, okay, if I have a fabricator helping me make something, I have to be there. Like, you can't just give them like a drawing and say, hey, make this and it's gonna come out right. You really have to be hands-on, and you got to be there through every step. I'm sure you know that. You know, it's yeah. When you're dealing with other people helping you out, you got to stay on top of them.
Yeah, they know that because they've helped me out with this.
Yeah.
So you were working in these different types of materialities. You went from this kind of finish fetish to like letting the hands-on stuff go. Those products, were those good lessons for you in terms of like letting things go a little bit, or did you feel like you still wanted to take possession back of the control of the production with things like the rug and stuff like
Well,
that?
I want to get more
let's go for
into
it.
the whole. Okay, so these, I call in this painting, these spiky things, I call them stalagmites. These are stalactites, but the stalagmites are the ones that come up from the ground. They're like the rock formations from like salt deposits and caves. I've had this obsession with them since I was a kid. Like, my dad took me to I'll never forget Bryce Canyon when I was like 6, 7, and just tripping out, and it's like been ingrained in my head since. So doing the paintings, I was like, okay, I want to start doing 3D objects, sculptures, and then I started doing them, and I got invited to do a show in São Paulo, Brazil, where 20 of these were made in this museum there. And this was a huge jump for me because this was like my first like installation, like sculptural installation. So actually taking the viewer into a space and have them be able to really have an all-encompassing like experience, like walking around. You know, I controlled the lighting and everything in there. And this was like a big step for me with my practice, like just taking, because what I was doing with the paintings was really, even though they were like this finished fetish, I was trying to make them have this 3D quality to them with the drop shadows and with the patterns in the background. So like doing this and being able to walk around it and see it from all these different angles and views, it was a pretty moving and powerful experience that kind of has catapulted my work from this point. And then it's part. This was like a residency / group exhibition in Sao Paulo. So there was artists invited from all over the world to do on this. And then I worked with this one artist. He did all these light installations. He was from Tel Aviv. His name's Yohai Matos. So that was really fun to do too. You know, and it was completely organic. And nothing was like, no one said, oh hey, you had to do a collaborative piece together. We just vibed out when we were out there, and we're like, let's do a piece together. And it was really fun. Let's see. So
how was it for you to like go from like the 2D realm to like that 3D realm?
Well, it was challenging in the sense that like going back to control. So I was making these. Probably made like 3 of them in LA. Figured out the math on it and how to make these, because they're pentagonal, they're 5-sided. Or it's not like a pyramid where it's 4-sided. So trying to figure out how to make it right. And then, so these, I sent instructions to Brazil. And there's a huge language barrier there. And sent instructions hoping that they would be fabricated the way I needed them to be fabricated. And I got there, and they were. But then, painting these, I had to do this in 10 days. I had assistants that spoke 0 English, and it was just me and these guys who only spoke Portuguese, and I literally was drawing on paper to give them instructions. Mm-hmm. And it was, you know, and you have to let go of a lot of your expectations. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, when again working with other people, and like even though I was working one-on-one with them, they don't speak the same language. But it was awesome, you know. And that's like one thing I've learned from being in college, because I used to be the most impatient person. I remember doing my design classes and like painting with gouache and like fucking up and like getting so pissed and throwing my shit across the room, like fuck. And then I've just learned over the years to just like, it's not a big deal. Take a breath. It's not a big deal. If you fuck something up, you can fix it. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. So from this install, then I got invited to go back, and I did this in a place called Parque Lage. So Christ the Redeemer, you notice is right up here, and then this is a school, a visual art school now, and where I did this piece is behind here. You take a trail to this lagoon. So
that's cool.
I did 14 of these stalagmite sculptures that I saw them as like shadows, voids, spirits kind of living throughout this place for a period of time. And this was, I mean, and going back to expectations and control. So this piece was initially supposed to be made out of concrete. I mean, no one would ever know this. So I was working with a fabricator in Brazil by here, trying to make these sculptures out of concrete. And it did not work out. Mm-hmm. It did not work out. And I had to switch the whole concept and everything like last minute. And then it worked out the way it was supposed to work out. Fast forward now, this was in 2011. so last year I got invited to go to Nicaragua to do another outdoor installation where I did them out of concrete, and I made them like it was.
What was the difference?
It was like a dream come true. It just wasn't supposed to happen here. And then when we were doing them, we started making them solid, out of solid concrete, and they were falling apart. They were really brittle. Actually, it would have been impossible to move. It would have been impossible to get these to be all over here. So then, let's see here.
You are on a time constraint, right, for car movement?
Yeah, I think I can go put some in like 10 minutes.
It's gonna be
It's
2.
1:45.
Yeah. Oh, 1:45.
Yeah, his thing's off.
I'm looking at your.
Yeah, I looked at my phone.
So I got invited to go to Nicaragua last year, and I did these guys in. I did like there was 15 of them, I think.
So were you on site when they built these in Nicaragua?
Yeah. And with this one, it made sense because I used the materials that they had readily available.
Okay.
And who I was invited, I was invited out there by these guys that own this village, and they also make furniture, so they had access to wood. And they make really amazing furniture. So I was confident, okay, these guys are going to be able to build these the way I need them built, because these were made. Here, I can show you better photos.
What are those made out of?
These are made out of wood. So this was temporary. This was part of like a group exhibition. So there was other artists, there was some institutions that were showing work. There was some other artists that had work throughout the forest too. So this was up for 2 weeks. When it was done on the last day, I had them destroyed. That was the whole kind of the concept of this, is they appeared out of nowhere and then got rid of them. Let me see. But this one here, which conceptually too with the concrete, so these ones in Nicaragua that I just did, they're permanent. They're not going anywhere. So I can give you a better idea of. So they're made with like a wood base.
So those are stained.
Yeah, these are made with a wood base. Then I wrapped them with like a wire form, and then put the concrete on, smoothed it. And this was crazy too, because I went during the rainy season, specifically because that's when it's really lush and green. Because in Nicaragua, 6 months out of the year, it's really dry. It's not like, say, Brazil, where it's tropical green all year round. Here, it's like the climate changes, like it does a complete like 360. It goes from like being lush green to then really dry and desert. Like,
wow.
So I was like, I wanted to place these and see the environment when it's at its like luscious.
And how are you interested in like people just discovering those? How do people come upon them? Are they expecting them, or are you interested in this kind of element? Of
So no, yeah, I'm
walking
totally all about discovery. So this is on a property. This is on a property where it's like it's for artists, it's for writers, it's for musicians. It's a place where they get invited to go do residencies and just hang. And so I positioned them throughout this property. So. Hey, maybe you go and see one, maybe you don't go see any, maybe you go see them all. But they're all positioned in and around like paths, so you can find them. You might even walk by it and not even notice it. But the whole idea of discovery, I think, just in general in like art, is really important. And it's what makes it fun for me.
Does that go back to like your street art practice, like this kind of discovery of things?
I mean, yeah, I guess you can tie it all back to that.
It's like about contextualizing things.
Well, it's like when you hear the term site specific, it's like whenever I do an installation like this, it is site specific. And going back to what Mario was saying, is I used to do, a lot of street art, but I've always everything was specific to the location. And like there's that one piece I have in Chinatown still.
Yeah.
I have to put this piece up in Chinatown.
But it was in a movie too. What movie was it in? It's like in the opening sequence
was
of some movie.
It was in Crash.
Was it in Crash? Yeah. So,
Dude, it was so crazy.
Yeah, it's like in the opening title sequence.
No, it was like towards the end. I remember sitting in the movie, and then all of a sudden there was like spotlights on my piece.
Yeah, like on the big
And I was
screen.
like,
No, that's how I remember seeing it
fuck?
too. I remember seeing it like it's like a montage of Chinatown, and then it's like Tofer's piece on the screen.
Yeah.
All right, so go.
I'm gonna go.
Break, put me
I'm gonna go
the
put
meter.
money in the meter. I'll be right back. Yeah, that was crazy.
All right, so we're back here with Tofer after our commercial. After our commercial break.
Thank you for our sponsors.
And we're talking about this relationship between what you were just showing us with these kind of sculptures based, like you've made this leap from 2D paintings to then creating the same type of imagery in 3D installations, and then taking those one step further and then reasserting them in a kind of outdoor context as kind of public works. And we were saying that maybe there was some kind of connection there in relationship to your site-specific street art that you were doing earlier.
I definitely, so going back to the street art, there's definitely, I mean, I learned so much doing that. And I actually stopped for years doing it because I made a conscious decision to take a break from that world. Or not even take a break, just completely exit that world because I didn't want to be pigeonholed as a street graffiti artist. This was it's different than what it is right now. Graffiti is now, I feel like, even though it's still graffiti, it's more accepted.
Yeah, it's more mainstream.
now.
More mainstream.
And then for me, it was a lot more aggressive, a lot more territorial, a lot more violent, a lot more not where I wanted to go with my art.
Yeah.
So that's just not where I wanted to go. You know, I wanted to do the museums, I wanted to do the galleries, I wanted to be a fine artist. So I had to stop that altogether, and it was really hard actually, because I started to get known and some notoriety for doing this street work. And then I just really started to focus on my studio practice, and then I started doing these projects in Spain, in Brazil, these site-specific public pieces that had nothing to do with street art, graffiti, and I mean it was fucking awesome. It was so good. And then I hadn't done anything in the States, and like I actually did. It was the first mural I did in the States because I was like, I want to get back into this out here, but I feel like now is the time I can do it. And then I did. It's actually right up the street from here.
Mm-hmm.
If we have time, I can go show you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then now with what I'm doing, it's like it kind of like I flipped it. It's what I'm doing within my studio practice, I'm now doing out in public.
Mm.
So it's not like what I'm doing on the streets. It's like say street art, and then trying to bring it into the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like, okay, what I'm doing in the gallery in the museum is then taking that and bringing it out into
So it's
an
not as
outdoor context.
So it's not as compartmentalized. It's kind of across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me show you just so you can see. This is exhibition stuff I can show you in a little bit, but so like this is the mural that's right. It's
Around the
literally
corner.
like right over here.
Yeah. That's like my burrito that's cut in half.
What is that?
No. I said remember.
Oh, they don't have. So this, like I said, I wanted to do some work out here. I got invited to do this wall. This is another side of my practice. It's separate from the fine art practice, but it's all comes together into the same. This is on a production studio, and they're called Shadow Machine Animation. They do shows. They've done a bunch of stuff for Adult Swim. They did this show Robot Chicken. I don't know if you guys are familiar with. They're doing tons of like 2D stuff right now. They have a show now on Comedy Central called Trip Tank, and I'm actually right now doing a show with them, a stop motion animation show that I've been working on for 7-8 years, and it's finally happening. So this is like right around the corner.
So is it just one episode, or is
no?
it
It's going to be Trip Tank is it's a bunch of short animated. It's a bunch of animated shorts.
Got you.
On a 30-minute block.
Okay, got you. So
And
it's gonna be a
it's-
segment in the.
We will have multiple episodes ranging from 3 minutes to 2 minutes to 1 minute to maybe even 50 seconds throughout the whole season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And are you gonna talk to us about those little guys?
I can.
You should, yeah, because
I can.
I like to hear like the spectrum of
I
all
can.
it.
Yeah, I
That'd be
can.
great, yeah.
So let me just real quick here just show you some more mural stuff and then we can. So then this is another one I did in San Francisco. And this was actually like taking the mural, flat painting, and then adding like a 3D parts to it.
Oh, that's cool. What part of San Francisco is that in?
It's like the Visadero, and it's like in Mission, I think, the Mission. And this was part of a project that was funded by Absolute Vodka, where they picked not street artists, not graffiti artists, just straight fine artists to transform a city block in one day.
Wow.
So you had 1 day to do it, but it was like there were 2 months of prep. Trying to figure out how to do that.
So where are these ideas coming from? Because I see the forms kind of repeating a little bit, but they're also a little bit different. And what's up with the color? What's the color scheme coming from?
And you can really see it in this photo here. So when I'm doing them outdoors, especially here in LA, the sky's always blue. So I want it to this is the sky, so I want it to blend into this photo's a really good one for it. So just kind of, and again, I see them as conversational pieces, and all these shapes are, inspired from like buildings and rock formations and man-made and natural architecture. And with my work too, it's like a big part of it is the idea of like a keyhole perspective, where you're looking into like a little hole and you only see like that little glimpse, and there's so much more like happening around. And they all come from, let me see this. Should I show them some exhibition photos?
Yeah.
So this was 2012, a show I did in New York. So this whole back wall is a photo. It's a 4-panel vinyl print. That's another thing that I take tons of photos, and photos used as references for my paintings, and just they become part of the whole body. So this was another install I did in the gallery in like the project room, and I titled it 23 White Stalagmites Aerial View. So when you walk in this room, it's all white. You feel like you're standing on the wall, looking down on, and these come out like 5 feet.
There's like a variety of pieces here. It's like not.
They're not the same.
Yeah.
Are they coming from the architecture photographs, or where are they getting reference from?
It's starting to from the architecture and still using the op art.
So it's kind of like emergence of them?
Yeah, and then you're going to see, then it goes to Then I did this show. Where it becomes, I'm really getting a lot more minimal and architectural. And using now, so all the anytime you see tan, it's raw. The canvas is raw. So I was really started. Okay, I'm getting into the idea of the surface and the skin. That, you know, there's the paint's the skin, the canvas is the skin, and showing actual the pro, because you know so many paintings you see is just like you use the canvas and it's just like paint all over it and you cover it. I wanted to start exposing the actual surface that's underneath and discussing paint as like a skin, because it is a skin that you're putting over the canvas.
Yeah, that's why I get weirded out when I get paint on my hands, because I feel like I can't breathe. I feel like I have like this extra skin growing on me.
It's like the glue.
Yeah, and I have to like take it off. It's like I start getting claustrophobia. It's like I'm growing extra skin.
So again, these
They're mutating.
It's like weird. It's weird.
Mutating.
Oh, it's weird. Oh. It's like plastidip.
well, in this show, the title of the show is with R, and it's air in Portuguese.
Ooh.
And I was really just investigating kind of like the movement of air through, say, like surfaces. Like this is like a cracked concrete in Sao Paulo. This is the Wailing Wall in Israel. These are all from my travels too. And then, you know, with the paint and exposing the canvas and just like kind of compared to the show that you saw that I showed the stalagmites coming out of the wall, and it was like
I think it's kind of interesting, because I think it's kind of why those solid concrete ones didn't work, because then they wouldn't be about skin. It would have been about like a mass.
yeah,
But then
well,
the way
this
that you did figure out the system was this kind of skin, concrete.
totally. Well, this in comparison to the last one, this one really had a breath of fresh air to it. Like you feel like it wasn't so tense. It wasn't so just like in your face optical like patterns pulsating.
Yeah.
It's this.
Oh, those are all the little prayers in the cracks.
Yeah, all the notes. And the photos are like, they're like, yeah, dude.
So that those.
And so now-
so the paint is only the white and the black.
The black, white,
then
and the black, and what you can't
That's
see.
the raw canvas.
And what you can't see, and this is another thing that's like so important with art, with music, is you have to experience it in person, firsthand, to really understand what you're looking at or what you're listening to. Because now there's thick paint, brush strokes, marks. You can't even tell that this is raw canvas from the photo. You know, you can't see the paint popping off of the canvas. You can't.
Yeah. So you weren't doing like the sandblasted thing.
No.
You were letting it kind of have a texture to
Yeah.
it.
No more. Then, so that was with 2013, and then I just had have a show up right now in New York. And this is... So I did a mural in the space, and then exhibited paintings and works on paper too.
It's like with your practice, Tofer, like every body of work that you're making for these different sites has like a specificity for the show, right? Like, or like that's the vibe I'm getting. It's not like you're making things in your studio and then,
Well, I am...
or like they seem to be designed for these spaces.
I am and that's a good point right now, because I used to work in a way where I would wait for someone to say, hey, I want to show you, I want to do a show, and then okay, I would make the work for the show. Now I'm making work every day, and then when a show comes up, maybe I'll make new works for that show, and then combine with some works that I already have made. But I'm constantly working on my practice, like every day, to really so it's not like a shocker when someone's like, hey, like here's this space, let's do something, and you're like, fuck, what do I do?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, each show has a concept to it. And it's like, it's a big part about, like, when you're exhibiting a body of work or something, it's about editing, it's about, getting your point across, telling a story. So it is project based, but it's not. It's, I feel
so
like.
you figured out a way to balance those two things, because it's not like you're rushing just to do homework for a show.
Yeah.
So you're in a continual.
It's a
continual practice that you build up on when you need to.
Yes.
Build up on for exhibition.
And now I feel like I've gotten to the point. It started in the show, not this one, but the one before, where I felt like, okay, I've got my language. Because over the years, it's like figuring out your own vocabulary, what works, what doesn't work, And like, it's like you say, you put something away in your studio, and then you're like, oh shit, I have this installation to do. Let's pull this from there. Because that's essentially what you do. You keep doing what you're doing. Some things work, some things don't work, some things may work down the line, and you kind of put it all together to make your own alphabet.
Yeah, the way that I try to describe exactly what you're talking about with my students is like, it's like the way that you pick your outfits.
Yeah.
Right? Like you go to your closet and like you might have stuff there that you bought that at some point you liked, but you're never going to wear it again. Because when you put it on, like it slips, it shows your ass crack, like whatever it does, right? Like it's like it's like tight on your belly and you're going to go eat. But then there are the things that are your go-tos that fit you, that you like the way they feel on you. And how do you know that? It's because you tried on all this other shit that doesn't fit you, or it's not your personality or whatever, and you choose those things instantaneously. You don't question them. Maybe sometimes my wife questions them, because it takes her longer to get ready for stuff. But you go to those things because you like that type of material, those type of T-shirts, blah blah blah, and that is what you're saying essentially, like your language, which is essentially like your sensibility in terms of like what works for you, and that's something that we don't second guess in what we choose to wear in the morning, and it takes a while in terms of what you don't second guess in terms of what you're making for your art.
Definitely.
But art, we think might be a little bit more complicated, but it shouldn't be. It should be as something that we go to just as simply as we would be choosing like what we are comfortable wearing.
No, it's, yeah.
Because it'd be really weird if I just showed up one day dressed like a goth kid one day. And you'd be like, what's wrong with you? And I had eyeliner on and shit, and a white face and some creepers on. It'd be weird. Yeah. So what I mean? So me, and you're like, and we know each other, we see each other, we know what is kind of, we know what's kind of in our language that you wear,
Well, it's an identity.
It totally is an identity.
It's developing an identity, but that identity that you can kind of constantly be molding, and
yeah. But it has a core.
It has that core and that's something that I had to learn over the years, because I was always that type that would be like, make something. I'd make something and be like, okay, I'm over it. I want to do something else. Oh, I'm over that. You have to really kind of figure out, like you're saying, that core and build off that core.
And that's just by spending time with it.
And it's totally spending a lot of time.
A lot of time.
A lot of fucking time. Even if it's just sitting there. You're just sitting there
I was just like,
yeah.
Yeah, just sitting
It's like
there.
the artist that sits there and goes, makes a mark and just stares
And
at it.
that's funny
because it's so true.
That's
though.
funny
It's like-
because the other day I go for my morning walks and I go in like beach areas. I go to Redondo Beach, the avenues, and I go for my walk there. Or I go to San Pedro Point Furman overlooking the coast and I go for my walk there. The last week I was in Redondo Beach and I was walking down and I passed these two guys there, like two surfer, bro guys looking at everybody in the water, and I was overhearing their conversation. And they were like, yeah, man, that guy, he takes forever. Like, I see him, like, draw the shape on the foam, and then it takes him a while to start carving it. They're talking about, like, a surfboard shaper. Yeah. And then, then he puts a stencil on a design of it, and then it waits a week before he actually paints it.
This is the conversation.
Yeah, this is the conversation I'm hearing these two guys having. The surfers having about, obviously, the shapers, the artists in that world, right? And they were like, yeah, man, he could totally make all kinds of money if it wasn't about just like him sitting there looking at the board for like a week. And why does he just stare at the board and the shape? And I was like, man, that's the difference between like an audience person that doesn't understand like what it takes to produce things and like somebody that produces things like you're saying right now. Like sometimes it is just sitting there, you know what I mean? Like waiting. And I was kind of surprised for the surfers. They should have that understanding too, because those motherfuckers sit in the water waiting for the wave. Yeah, dude. So I was like, don't you guys should know that you fucking wait. You're not surfing consistently. Like waves aren't coming in. And you gotta, you're in the water all morning.
Yeah, and when you were telling me this, that's what I was thinking. I was like, dude, you guys are so ignorant right now. Like,
that's exactly what they do too. They wait for the
what
wave.
you do. You go out there and you wait.
Yeah, that's the same thing with an artist. You're waiting for them. You could have a discipline, of course. It takes a discipline to get out there and stuff. But at the same time, you have to wait. And that reminds me, not to get all biblical, but it reminds me of one of my favorite Bible verses. I think it's like Proverbs 29:31 or 31:29, and it says, "Prepare the horse for battle, but victory is the Lord's." So essentially saying like, you can't just be like, oh man, I hope I get through this. I hope I can get through it. It's like, no, you got to prepare the horse. So you got to be disciplined, like you're saying, to have this kind of daily practice that's making your stuff and all that. And yeah, the victory is the Lord's. Like it's like destiny or fate that the wave is going to come and take you in or whatever. But if you're not in the water, if you don't have your surfboard, if you're not ready for it, it ain't gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen. So you gotta be in the groove of it for it to come and take you in to ride it, I guess.
And this is where like patience, like, and that's applied to like everything in life. It's like just the more patience you can have, the better off you're gonna be. It's just things take time. Good things take time.
Take time.
They really do. It's like a lifelong thing. It's a lifelong process.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Anything you want to wrap up with us about Tofer?
What was I going to wrap up about? So that's like, you got a bit of the fine art practice. So then, like, I'm doing the cartoon stuff. I'm just like, I want to wrap up with, you can just do it all. Have fun with what you're doing. You know what you're interested in, know what you're good at, and just do it all. Do it all. I brought a couple things here.
Cool. We got Tofer swag.
So I could only get my hands on one more. So I do some package design. Brought you guys stuff. So there's this group. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're fairly new. They're called Deluxe.
No, me.
So this is the.
I share it with you guys here.
This is the first album packaging I've ever done. It came out last year.
You designed it?
I'm working on the second one right now. So check it out.
Awesome. Man. Check this out.
So these guys sound kind of like Talking Heads meets LCD sound system.
Right.
Very disco-y. And then you pull it out. Got this photo on it. And then some clear vinyl.
Wow, that's awesome. Take a picture of it. Take a picture of this thing. It's really cool.
Get what?
I don't know how many are going to be here today. Brought you guys a little bag.
Awesome. So
Oh,
thank you.
yeah.
so much.
And there's a CD in there too.
Awesome. Thank you. I really
So this
appreciate
bag was made in Japan. I went to Japan last year and I did like a private mural commission for these
it.
guys,
Awesome.
and they made these for me
Thank you.
too. Yeah, rad. You get one of these too, Mario.
Can Carla have one? Or
Yeah.
because I know she's gonna jack me if I don't take one
Here, I'll
home.
get here.
I'll be like, Tofer gave me a bag. Oh, it's mine.
There's CDs in there too.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Really
Yeah, dude.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So, yeah, have fun.
Oh man,
Just have
thank you so
fun,
much,
dude.
Topher.
Yeah.
I really
Dude, this is
appreciate your
awesome.
time, man.
This is totally awesome.
So Tofer just completed our first "You Got to See It to Be It" series here at Slanguage at LAXART. The first artist to be with us here. We're really excited about that. We're looking forward to growing this program, Toph, and we're really glad you came, man. We really appreciate
Thank
your
you for
time.
having
man.
me. This was awesome.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do
Yeah.
you guys have anything to say?
Yeah, do you have any
Questions,
questions?
concerns?
Yeah, I just want to keep. I want to see what happens next. Like, I want to see those sculptures. I want to see
Yeah.
everything.
Hell yeah.
I'm inspired for sure. One, and yeah, I want to see more.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm good to meet you and see your artwork, and then know that like I am in the right path of doing my art. Because I'm always like, what am I going to do in my life? What job am I going to get? You know, and you meeting different people, I see like they have to quit like the other kind of distractions in their life and just focus on their practice. You know, it's just in their art. You know. And I'm like in the process of like, okay, to go get my master's or go to school, or if I don't do that, like what space or to do my artwork, you know, and just hearing different people's their struggles or their situations, you know, like what they had to quit, you know, what do I have to sacrifice for what I want to do in life, you know. So just from hearing your stories, it's like, okay, I can do this too, you know. I had a pep talk with Mario right here, so I'm like, yes, you know, like I know I could do this. I don't know what stops me from not achieving those goals that I want to do, you know, but I'm glad that you were able to tell your story, you know, and then soon enough we hear our stories.
Yeah.
Bigger picture.
Yeah, I'd love to see what you guys are
You gotta
working
really
on,
take
too.
courage, don't Topher?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it is. And it's also acknowledging too, like I'm saying, what you're good at. Because you know, if it's a, you know, for me, it's like, you know, like for the longest time I had to do, you know, random graphic design jobs, just stuff to make ends meet, to doing the art department work, doing all that, to do what I want to do. And then, you know, at some point it starts flowing, and then you see yourself like, shit, I'm doing what I want to do. This is awesome.
Yeah.
You know? But it never just happens like that.
No.
Ever. But yeah, no, it was great meeting you guys and talking to you.
All right, so that was You Got to See It to Be It with Tofer Chin. Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
see you soon, Toph.
Yeah, dude.
Slanguage Studio 2015.
We out.